Welcome to Om Times TV, a division of Om Times Media and Broadcasting. Sex is the life force energy that runs through us all. The link between sex, creativity, and the sense of aliveness is strong. Can you use sexual energy for your spiritual evolution? Or perhaps for emotional healing? Is it even possible? Clinical sexologist Dr. Martha Tara Lee will explore all these and more on the Eros Evolution Show here on Om Times Radio and TV.
Hello, and welcome to Eros Evolution. This is where sex and spirituality and everything in between meets. Today's show is called Sex, Love, and Hip Hop. And I have with me Masia One. She is one in a million. Truly. So born in Singapore, raised in Canada, she earned her stripes in the American music industry. This artist is reconnecting with her roots in Asia and re-emerging as the Far East Empress. So Masia One is not only a hip-hop artist, but she's also an entrepreneur and cultural ambassador. Her music cuts through the zone of life, inspiring people to rein in as their royal selves. Her journey has been an unlikely one of being a full-time hip-hop artist after graduating in architecture at the University of Toronto. Her unique sound and courageous journey paved the way for the work of top artists and eminent producers such as Pharrell, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Chief Vicious, many others. Her music has been featured in Netflix series like Tiny Pretty Things, Snowpiercer, Wu Assassins, Altered Carbon, and sampled for the title track of Fast and Furious 8. So, for today's show, we are going to be talking to Masia One, as you know. She's an Asian woman in a Western country. So, against the odds, Singapore-born, Canada-bred Masia One made her name for herself in Hollywood. So, breaking Asian stereotypes to empowering women, particularly in the realm of sexuality. In 2020, December, 2 years ago, Major and fellow artist Elaine Lim, known as General Ling, created the song Not All That Glitters Is Gold after a headlining artist allegedly assaulted a member of her team. On International Women's Day, March 8 this year, Major One released Vulva Vocabulary, a body positive message to hashtag break the bias. So this episode will discuss Major One's recent marriage, healthcare, hip hop, and more. So welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. What an introduction. Thank you. Good morning and good evening elsewhere.
Yeah. So this show goes to people all around the world, and I myself didn't really know too much about you because I'm not into music. And but what I love was your song, All That Glitters Is Not Gold. And it really has a very strong message. So maybe you can tell our listeners more about the story behind it and how has the response been?
Sure. Okay, right out the gate. Hi, I'm Masia. I usually do very hip hop songs. I worked in LA, as you mentioned. I wrote a lot of hooks and pop songs and R&B songs in that time. And honestly, coming into this industry, I came up in the Canadian music industry first. And there was no one that looked like me doing what I was doing. So I didn't really see that representation. Asian female in hip hop definitely faced over the years a lot of precarious situations, which I realized, I kind of like brushed off or tried to like ignore sexual harassment, pretend it wasn't happening. Um, be Learn how to be one of the boys so that you can hang and still be acceptable in those circles. And in actually, it was the end of 2019 on a tour in Australia. It was a reggae tour. The one of the artists on the tour allegedly sexually assaulted my PA on the tour, and she's also artist General Ling. And so when this happened, um, man, I mean, of course, addressing trigger warning, addressing the situation was one thing, but the other part of it was realizing the promoter's response to it, the venue's response to it, what resources are available when something like that happens, who is there to talk to, is there a go-to counselor that is arranged, and I felt like we were kind of left for dead because the promoter was just kind of like, we've never experienced anything like this on a tour before. We don't know how to help you. Sorry. We were in a foreign country, trying to navigate doctors, police, counselors, all of these things. And then when I came back to Singapore, I brought the survivor together with me back to Singapore. And when we looked for resources in Southeast Asia, we realized that often they are far and few between, number one. And when I spoke to different members of the music industry, whether it was DJs, just contemporaries, peers, almost everybody told me to just protect my money, protect my reputation, and just tell her to suck it up. So I was very shocked that in we're 2020 now, but at that time, 2020, those were the attitudes and of a fairly young generation in the entertainment and creative industry. Coming out of Southeast Asia. So I was very shocked at the response. And as a result, we decided to write it. Well, I wrote a song called Not All That Glitters Is Gold together with a producer named Jawais. We invited General Ling on. I'm like, do you want your voice heard on this song? And she said, absolutely. And she's very brave for the steps that she has taken. And yeah, we just put this song out there to just speak out against sexual abuse, specifically in this case in the entertainment and creative industry.
Hmm. Thank you so much for sharing. So this is not the first time I'm hearing this story. You were previously on my virtual festival, Sugar and Spice. People can actually find the YouTube panel discussion that we have put online as well. It is a very, very important topic because um, as women, I think a lot of us are told to fall in line, just keep quiet, just look good, and we are sexualized at every turn. It was really scary when I was in my 20s, navigating being a woman and being angry all the time in being born in a woman's body. So I kind of get what you meant when you said like you just wanted to be fit in and be one of the boys and just ignore things and lay low. But I feel that what happened with your stance making this song, all that glitters is not gold, is kind of like you're coming out. Like,
Mm,
I'm not
yeah.
going to deny that I'm a woman anymore.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I also identified my own kind of negative coping mechanisms where it almost became like pardon my bluntness, but it almost became a skill to duck rape in my industry. Like I'm like, well, I made it this far and I'm successful because I was able to navigate that space. And when this happened, I thought to myself, for all the people that have different personalities in the world, just because they might not be like rapper like me in your face and saying certain things, if you just have a different personality, that doesn't mean that you should be put in a non-safe space or a precarious situation because you want to sing music or write a song or be a part of this creative industry. So that's when I kind of said, okay, I have some negative habits where I almost prided myself to be able to get through, when no, actually that puts me in a position to speak out against this type of behavior, and also to help contribute to the education in our industry on how we can support survivors better, identify, have stronger bystander intervention, all of that.
Yeah, so I strongly encourage listeners here. You may not have heard of Masia One, but you can definitely look out her songs, and you can definitely start following her. And all that glitters is not gold is actually on YouTube as well, and on several other music platforms.
And recently we released a new remix of the song with an artist named Toke out of Germany. And it was so valuable to also have a male standpoint on the issue. So we have an acoustic version with Toke and a reggae version with General Ling and Jawais.
Awesome. So, share with us like what happened when the song was released.
So when the song was released, initially I would say that Asia was very quiet in the media because they weren't really sure. Like, it's still kind of taboo, but I think Singapore media does take chances sometimes, and like some media knows, especially the younger platforms. They feel like, yeah, actually, we are comfortable speaking out about certain things. So very like underground media's picked it up, but international media picked it up. And what was beautiful is that artists that I knew and that I don't know from around the world contacted me, and they were offering their own version, their own stories, their own words of like solidarity. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's make a remix. So we were able to record an Empress remix with over 14 women internationally, which I'm really excited about. We're still working on it and releasing it for November 25th, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Gender-Based Violence. Oh, I did it. It was long. Um, and yes, and then when international media start picking it up, I was very surprised. Indonesian media picked it up in a large way, which was very nice because the tour went through Indonesia. And I found out that the alleged perpetrator was trying to then book another tour in Asia after this incident, and contacting my same kind of connections and venues and promoters. And those promoters teamed together and went to the radio and really like help push my song even more. So I thought that was a huge and amazing step to happen in Indonesia. It was on every radio station, it was being promoted like crazy. And then I saw the rest of Southeast Asian, Malaysian and Singaporean media come around and begin publishing their own stories. And around that time, I think I met you and I sat on your panel to speak about this song and also just the general situation around it. There's so much that happens. The creative industry is very prone because you don't necessarily have set hours, 9 to 5. You have a lot of gatekeepers, which is an imbalance of power, someone that is willing to use their power for improper things. You also have a lot of drinks flowing and substances flowing often in the entertainment industry, late nights at the bar, that type of thing. So I think that with all of these things in mind, it's important to, I don't know, as creatives, as participants, begin to help encourage a culture of consent. Number one, people that actually celebrate and congratulate that consent, and also a culture of consent in business. Also working with people that are positive and supportive, and being more inclusive. So these are the goals either way.
That's
I
so
feel like I'm talking
wonderful.
so much in the morning. Sorry, man.
No, no, no. You are my
No, no
guest. It's
problem.
for you
Yeah,
to share with us your amazing work. So I just want to say I'm really, really proud of you for
thank
making a
you.
stand, for not just sweeping it under the carpet like what everybody else must have been saying, and the good that has come out of it. And of course, you're sharing the good side of what has happened. Um, you also, I imagine, receive a lot of flake for it. Like,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was told I was banned from certain reggae circles. The industry can be quite misogynistic. So, like Kakila, like the crews got together, and maybe like the boys club was not happy about what I was doing or saying. But like I tried not to focus on that end of things and just keep pushing and keep the movement with some momentum. So there definitely was backlash. There were people that are very worried about me, that like, oh, your career, how, there was the usual cliche black backlash that's like, oh, it's just like two chicks trying to get money. And another story that was going around was that I was a disgruntled artist, and so because I had been kicked off the tour, I was angry at this artist and made up stories about him. It's interesting because I was actually the promoter of the tour. So I had to explain to a lot of people that, I set up the tour. So how could I kick myself off my own tour? So I think that a lot of cliches and normal kind of stereotypes you have about women or just singers in the industry and these type of things, not were played up. The stereotypes were played up in order to get certain stories out, rather than saying, like, if we lived in a space where, like, yeah, women could be amazing promoters, women could be amazing, sound engineers, all of these things, then these kind of stories don't perpetuate as easily. So yeah, there's definitely the stories out there. Are you sure or not? What was she wearing? All of these things, these type of things.
so I love for you to share with listeners, because we are not just talking about your work, and also like what would be useful to people out there who feel this sense of injustice, violence that have been put onto them. Like, how did you cope with all these things that you were being accused of is not true? How did you deal with that?
I put out the song. I guess for myself, I was, at the time I was just more focused on the survivor, how this was impacting her, right? Because I was someone that she cared for, and then she saw me being attacked because I was kind of like on the platform. I didn't want to. I rather the song speak. I didn't want to show my face speaking about things too much, because I feel like if the survivor wants to tell her story, then she should be given the platform to just speak. And then another accusation was happening was that I was doing this to further my fame. So I was making up a story about assault so that I could further my fame. And so I didn't really want to be in the limelight, like, like adding to the story. What I really rathered was the song speak for itself. And then in the background, I'm, curating the 15 women that want to be on the remix. I'm curating a acoustic remix with Toke. We're creating a PDF booklet for venues and producers and, promoters, just to say, hey, if someone comes to you on tour and says this has happened to you, to themselves, here are some ways that you can respond, how to express without sounding judgmental, different things that can actually be done, So I really wanted to work on that end of the Not All That Glitters campaign.
That's wonderful. So let's talk about Vulva Vocabulary. Is that like the continuation, like the next step of your stepping into your destiny?
Sure. I mean, you could say that after Not All That Glitters, I begin reading a lot of literature on what creates these imbalances of power or creates a society where people like sexuality is such a beautiful thing. And when it can be used as a weapon, as something harmful, how does this happen? How what education is needed? Why are these things taboo to talk about? Why does a survivor feel shame when the only person that should feel ashamed is a violator? Like these different questions were all swimming in my mind, so I just kept reading up, and it kind of led to this idea of then what creates a society that kind of sweeps this under the rug that says, hey, it's okay for people to be victimized in this way. A lot of authority, whether it's police or legal systems, are not really the places that survivors trust to find their justice. Often it's been let down, or they've been put in more precarious situations by telling their story or having to tell their story over and over again. And it's very triggering and painful. So I wanted to look into these things. And one of these things was looking into my own life too and saying, like, hey, like, I've been very yang energy my whole life, like MC, rap battle, being the only girl in every crew, having to fight my way through to say, like, hey, no, I'm here to stay. I represent myself. I represent my music, all of these type of things. So when I went backwards, I started indulging in all the things that I wouldn't in the past. So before I'd be like, bah, femininity. Who needs that? You know what I mean? But now I was like talking to my friends saying, okay, all that divine feminine affirmations that I used to make fun of you about, let me delve into it because there's obviously a very imbalance here in the society and an imbalance in myself too, if this is my attitude toward things. And I thought back of like, preteen or, that era. And I remembered that my guardians used to tell me that your vulva, your private part as a woman was called your shame. I was like, yo, as a kid, I never questioned that. But now as a woman, I'm like, if I'm taught that that's called my shame from childhood, then if I have a health issue there, if I have been violated in any way, if I just have a question, then wouldn't I feel ashamed about this part that I've been told is called the shame? When, you get your period as a young girl and you're like, oh, I should be hiding my face and going to the bathroom and hiding the pad when really like, hey, no, why? This is like a natural part of life. So I started going back and undoing all these things and thus blossomed this song, Vulva Vocabulary.
Awesome. I love it. And you also had a health scare around that period, right?
Absolutely. I was told around right after we had released actually Not All That Glitters campaign, I was told that I had fibroids and a potential ovarian cyst. And for my personality, it was a shock because I'm like, I'm invincible. I'm a rapper. I'm just like, there's no way there's anything wrong with me. And being humbled with your own body and being told your own health, um, that was a huge part why I decided to kind of delve into like all the things, all the affirmations, all the meditation, everything that I've never done in my life. I just started getting into. I noticed that I spoke to 5 doctors, 4 of them were men, and I noticed that a lot of the way that I was approached was a very harsh way in the medical system. Just I was told to get a hysterectomy right away. By 4 doctors, and the way in which it was spoken about was like, well, it's the old baby maker. You're 30, you're over 30, you can like just, you don't need it anymore. I was just like, wow, like that's the attitude that, a uterus is just an old baby maker and like take it out like the kitchen sink when it's done, um so I didn't like the feeling, the way I was being spoken to, like, don't be stupid, go get a hysterectomy, and let me speak to your husband, let me see if he wants babies. Like, I just, now with Not All That Glitters campaign having passed, I was more alert to these ways of being spoken to and spoken down to, and then thinking about all the other people that are in a position to hear about their medical health in a way that is already very skewed and very biased. So I went full on. I looked, I researched, I changed my diet, I went full vegan, I meditated every day. I heard that fibroids had a lot to do with holding on. Some say mother wound, some say like just holding on to something that you should let go. And women store a lot of their pain in their womb. I took time to read a lot about the womb and how this is not a place, a source of like shame. This is a source of creation and magic and everything positive. So then I also sat back as a rapper and said, all these, popular artists are rapping and singing about handbags and cars and popping bottles. Like, I'd make a rap about fibroids. How am I a grown woman, and I've never heard about fibroids until I've been told that I have them? These are the type of songs that actually should be made and should be sharing, like very basic knowledge, fine, but at least it breaks taboos to be able to speak about these things. So at the end of the day, I took care of myself. I did the work. And when I went for my surgery 3 months later, everyone was surprised. I didn't have an ovarian cyst. I did have fibroids. And I didn't have to go into any chemo or anything like that. And so I like to believe that the process helped heal my body and my mentality. Um, yeah, so it was an amazing time, and to also be putting out music that reflects the time I was going through and the healing process I was going to through is like a real blessing.
Yeah, you went through a lot, sounds like. And you went deep.
Yeah. When I was initially asked, like, Masia, fibroids has something to do with not letting go. And I was like, I'm good. I don't hate anybody. I have no grudges, and I was just like, I don't see what the problem is. But when you stop talking, I suppose, and take time to really go deep, um, I also read certain books and I followed the exercise in the books. And in the past, I'd be like, oh, this cheesy exercise. I'm not doing this cheesy stuff. So I just did it for fun, did it out of curiosity, did it just to find balance because I didn't realize my own imbalance. And so when I went through that process, like, okay, write down every criticism you've ever heard about yourself and just being able to see it all on a page and being able to then identify, hey, that's why I talk to myself in that voice, or I'm so casual to criticize myself about that kind of thing. So I thought it was good, like where I thought I had no problem and whatever, then you just do the work and then you see the work that needs to be done.
Amazing. So you're talking about, really all the stuff, that needs to be clear. It's like a reboot, a detox, talking to your inner child, reparenting yourself. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it was a great process. And for me, music has always been my therapy. So to be able to go through that process and at the end result in something like, nah, I want you to hear also, is a great gift.
Yeah, I did listen to Vulva Vocabulary. It's so fun. I was smiling through it all, and also the fact that it was a music video helped a lot because I could see your personality and your creativity in it as well.
Well, that music video was done during the lockdowns here in Malaysia. So we're like, how can we get creative and still do a video around it? So we found a vulva puppet maker in San Francisco. And so she was kind enough to send me her puppet all the way from San Francisco. We took this vulva puppet all around town, and just treated it like your BFF, because I asked a very simple question. What if we treated our most treasured body parts, or even our body, period, like our BFF? We'd probably be a lot kinder, a lot more attentive, yeah, and a lot more mindful to it. So yeah, it was kind of an analogy in a silly, very silly video of what it would look like to treat your vulva like your BFF.
Yeah, I think it's really easy to be nice to other people because we've been taught all our lives to be nice, but we really need to be nice to ourselves, and especially to love our bodies, our intimate parts, and stop putting poison into ourselves. Really, all the negative thoughts, all the blame, shame, it really, really all adds up and builds up. So we have a break, and after this big break, we'll be back.
Om Times TV. Imagine becoming a super influencer. Reinvent yourself, invest in your brand, and then manifest your success with a robust spheric approach. Om Times Media and Broadcasting offers a unique and multifaceted way to become the spiritual and conscious influencer you deserve to be by putting your message across our powerful platform with its proven record of integrity and excellence. Through our produced shows, Om Times offers the opportunity to become a social media TV personality, a radio show host, an Om Times magazine columnist, and a syndicated podcaster, all in one shot. By live streaming your show on Om Times TV and broadcasting it across the extensive Om Times radio and TV networks, you become more than a host. You become an ambassador and a force for positive change. Om Times. Open yourself to the possibilities.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
Hey, we're back, and I'm with Masia One. Today we're talking about love, sex, and hip hop. In case you don't know about her, she's an artist that does hip hop, and is not just a hip hop artist, but an entrepreneur and a cultural ambassador. She's changing the world with her music, and you should definitely check out her work. That's Masia1.com. You can also find her on Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud. So just before the break, we were talking about the origin of two of her songs, All That Glitters Is Not Gold and Vulva Vocabulary. You also mentioned a little bit about her health scare. So, Masia, during this time, you also got married. Tell us about it.
I did. I thought it would never happen. Well, more like my mom thought it would never happen. But we were both trapped. No better way to know the partner you want to be with than to be stuck in a small condo with one person for 2 years. But we were already trying to get married before the lockdowns were happening. And, his name's Rob. It's actually a promoter. He was running festivals in Taiwan, reggae festivals in Taiwan. And he had booked me for some festivals. We really got along. I started going back to Taiwan just to see him. He moved to Southeast Asia for me, and he's a mix of Chinese, British, Jamaican, Venezuelan. Sometimes my friends like, how did you find this? Because it's like exactly what you were looking for. And yeah, it's I guess what I would want to say around it is that when I turned 26, my mom told me, like, it's over for you. If you don't marry now, it's over for you. It's like 26 now or never. I was like, really? 26? Like, I'm having a good life. So after that age passed, she'd still be on me like, still no babies, no marriage, the very traditional family kind of Chinese family thing. And I would be like, hey, you already told me after 26 is over for me, lah. So cannot bother me anymore. It's already over, right? It's over. But I spent a lot of my life on the road, touring, writing in odd hours. Like, it's not the like family life setup that you would imagine. So I knew that it would be like kind of that kind of 9 to 5 kind of be there for your partner kind of life was difficult until I met my match and we got married finally end of last year, and it's been good. It's been great.
I'm so happy for you.
I'm still getting used to it. A lot of my friends are still like, isn't it weird that you're like, hey, that's my husband? I'm like, yeah, I'm getting used to it. I'm getting used to it. When you go to the doctor and sign out a form, it's like single or married. I still tick single. I'm like, oh wait, no.
Yeah, enjoy each other. Life is short. And
I gotta say that he's been a partner that's been very, very, very supportive of the songs that I've been doing. I mean, the months that I was doing vulva vocabulary, my house is covered in like vulvic paintings and paraphernalia. And and he's just gotta like keep pushing away or like organizing little vulva pictures everywhere. He saw that I was doing an Empress remix for Not All That Glitters, and now he's organizing a King's remix of all male artists because he's like, no, we absolutely need all voices on this thing, not just like saying that this is something that happens to women. It happens to men too. It happens to everyone, actually. And so it's important to keep inclusive of all those voices. So I was like, sure, I don't have the time to organize that, if you will. And so he started organizing a King's remix. So yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. Dual power.
With vulva vocab, I wanted to add that vulva vocabulary, experimented with releasing it as an NFT. I don't know if you're into your like Web3 game, but and as an NFT, if anyone buys the NFT, they get a reusable pad, a batik pad made here in Malaysia. With the NFT, so it's been good. I sold a couple, and the money is going to go to doctors on the doctors on ground that support communities facing period poverty here in Malaysia. So we're also finding ways that technology, music can meld so that it can actually have a social impact on the back end.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that you were promoting these reusable menstrual pads on your social media, and I
Yes.
thought it was such a good partnership.
I was making a joke that I might be the first rapper to ever sell maxi pads, but I didn't know very much about period poverty. This is not something that, like I was taught in school or ever learned about. And when I started to think like, wow, I grew up thinking, oh no, it's my time of the month again, Sien, like have to get a pad. And for some people, that's a privilege to be able to just like go to a store and take care of yourself, or wash something and take care of yourself, or have a menstrual disc or cup. There are communities where women and girls don't have that luxury or accessibility, and just sitting back thinking about them, like, oh man, let's rethink how we see the menstrual cycle, and how much guys should know about the menstrual cycle as well, because I feel like they should be part and parcel with it too, and also realizing different levels of community and the support that can be given with that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I talk about my period all the time, and it's really
Yeah.
important to be that different voice, because every month it comes, it's like a reboot for me. First, I kind of retreat, and then I emerge, and I feel like it's a wonderful time to actually rest and revisit all the things that are important for me, and all the things that are working and not working, and it's really a very precious time, instead of thinking of it as a curse or like a bother and a burden, and it's just about pain. People who enjoy their periods especially need to talk about it, because we need to, I think, send out different messages and to model for people there is a different way that we can be. So yeah, I'm one of the few people who talks about my period all the time, and I
Awesome.
refuse to be shamed. I refuse to be shamed. Like there was once, recently, I had a party. Like 10 of my friends came over, and I had to change my clothes 3 times because I was having my period, and I
Yeah.
kept bleeding onto my clothes, and and it was just like, this is just a normal part of how it is. And they were asking me like, why do you have these accidents? I said, I have them every month. I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just me. But it's fine. It's normal.
Yeah, and it's especially when you're wearing white or a light color.
Oh yeah. So I really appreciate the invention of the period panty, because that helped a little bit with my
Yes.
leakages every month. Yeah. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the other things that you are doing.
Upcoming,
Yeah.
upcoming. So this whole kind of series of Not All That Glitters kicked off something I call the Empress Tribe series of songs, where these are songs that address more the yin side of things, or address things that I've avoided my whole life. Like when I started in this industry and they asked me, what's it like being a female Asian MC? I hated it. I hated it. Because I was at the stage where I just want to prove that I'm an MC. I'm just as good as anyone. Don't have to identify me as you're this or you're that. I just wanted to be there for hip hop and just be a great artist. But as I went through my career, and I've performed everything from high schools that live like up north Canada, high schools where there's maybe like two Vietnamese students in the whole school, and they'll come running up to me and thank me for performing, because they're like, we've never seen anyone that looks like us doing what you're doing. And we get beat up every day in school for just being who we are, like being the only Asian kids here. And we're grateful that you just made being Asian cool, stuff like that. And then now going through this part of my life and seeing like, yeah, representation actually does matter. I know it's a cliche, but it matters so much. And the number of people, fans, friends, contemporaries that have opened up to me when I released a song like Not All That Glitters, um, and from all walks of life too. Or when I released Vulva Vocabulary, the number of women that kind of wrote to me and said like, oh my God, like I used to be so ashamed of this and that, or I couldn't talk about this and I wanted to. Um, it inspired this other artist to like start her kind of podcast series to say like, all vulvas look different, like let's not shame our own bodies and this type of thing. So the final song of this series is called Thicky Thicky, and it's about thicky bodies, like fluffy girls. And it's no disrespect to any other bodies, skinny girls, you get love too. But we're we're also, I find that this industry does not celebrate the thicky thickies enough. So yes, celebrating curve song, to a very heavy booty twerking beat so that it can be fun. And at the end of it, that's it. Like I want to make music. Music is there for a spiritual connection. Music is there to communicate in a way that just words alone can't. So if whether it's vulva vocabulary, just getting silly with it, and addressing taboo topics in Southeast Asia with humor, um, or whether it's Not All That Glitters, where it was a reggae tour and the survivor puts her own voice on the song to say, no, every time this song plays, listen to me, and I'm not afraid to stick up for who I am and what has happened to me and what I want to say about it. So I think that music's so powerful. It's often seen as entertainment, but really, we can play up the entertainment aspect of it and still share something that is empowering. I've worked in the music industry for so many years, and often the messages are about, what is it about my lifestyle you're jealous of, or what do you wish you had? This inspiring the sense of lack. But I would rather music be inspiring a sense of empowerment, a sense of wholeness, gratitude, having, like sensuality, all of it. So I think that the music industry is very different from music as an art on its own. And then how do we continue? Like, how do we do more positive things with music and creativity?
Love it. Yeah, it's so important. It's so important. Yeah, and I love how your music is now reflecting who you are and what you're going through, what you are becoming. And I agree with you what you said about representation, because I didn't have any role modeling of what I can be growing up and the possibilities. I was told just, be content with your lot. And then when I became a sexologist, being the only Asian sexologist that I knew of, being told all the time, being put down, being harassed, being objectified, it is very tough. It makes you want to give up all the time. So yeah, it's important to have all kinds of representations,
Yeah.
and for me it was really about what I call it, like put my stick in the sand and not move. Like I'm
Mm.
here and I'm not going to move because it is this important.
Yes. And you hold space for so many people too. So it's not just for yourself. Like it's this important for so many reasons. Um, I can't even imagine the type of backlash that you would have gotten because just putting out a song called Vulva Vocabulary, to me, it's a biological term, right? Like vulva, it's okay, guys. But I got a lot of backlash that right away is like, oh, this song is very vulgar, is it? This song is very obscene. I was like, no, there's nothing vulgar, obscene of it. I even had to speak to a few ad agencies and PR agencies asking if I know it's like taboo, but do you think this can go out? And they're like, no, your song's very vulgar. I said, well, there's no swear words in the song, and it's like a chill '90s R&B hip hop kind of vibe. And they're like, yeah, but it's obscene, La Meja, it's obscene. And so realizing that right away a woman's body is tagged to sexuality, it's already sexualized. There's no if, ands, and buts about it. Um, and also seeing other women feeling uncomfortable about addressing their own body as well. Um, and just trying to figure out, like, yeah, vulva, like, come on, and I would tell the ad agencies, like, you came out of one, I came out of one. What's vulgar about that? And then I stopped getting phone calls.
Oh no. So do you worry about being cancelled and being regarded as irrelevant?
Um, no, I mean, I actually maybe I should think about those things more. Maybe my one skill in life is that like I have a thick skin. Like I really am able to focus on the message that I feel should get out there. I surround myself with creatives and people that I trust and that respect their opinion. And if cannot, they will tell me cannot right off the top. And I don't know. I mean, like, canceled, I don't think people can cancel someone for a topic that should be spoken about. And especially when dealing with so much hurt and so much sweeping under the rug of that hurt. I think that we live now in an age where we're given the tools and the online ability and the communication tools to be able to share those things. And I feel like music is the kind of lowest entry point where it's still like, hey, we're going to talk about this, but you shouldn't feel so threatened. We're just singing, you know? So, no, I don't worry about that as much. Of course, no one likes backlash, no one likes hate mail. Um, I think because I came up at a time in the industry in Canada and America where there was no other female Asian MC, I've heard it all. All the yellow fetishism, all the like hate mail, all the death threats, even. I've already heard all of it. So at this point, I'm just like, honey, I'm a grown ass woman. I'm gonna write the songs that I want to write. If you relate, great. If not, move along. And then we just roll. It's okay.
Yeah, it's really important to also be authentic to yourself. So I'm glad that you have ways to um, stay strong, like you mentioned, having trusted people around you.
Yeah. And again, back to the topic of representation. I remember I was doing a magazine, I won't name, but it's a very mainstream magazine. And it's like teen college girl magazine. And they were interviewing me for mentorship, like to share about the music industry. I've been in this business for almost 20 years, that kind of thing. And then they found out at the time, I think I was like 32, 33, and they found out my age and they're like, oh, we can't interview you anymore. You're over 30. And I was like, but you're giving mentorship advice to teenagers. So is the 21-year-old giving mentorship advice to the 17-year-old? Like, what's going on here? Do women just like wither and die after 30? Like, what happened? And so I realized that a lot of the media loves words like live your passion, be an edgy girl, find a good mentor, gratitude to what you're doing, and like, live your best life. But at the same time, they shy away from asking a lot of people in positions that have gone through the mud. Like, I don't know if I can cuss on this show. I was about to cuss, but I've gone through some BS, okay? And those are the mentors you want to speak to. Those are the, like, when you have seen how ugly and how beautiful things can get, I feel like those are the mentors to speak to. And it was a pity to me that media doesn't cover a lot of these people just because of rules or selling rules or marketing rules they have. So platforms like yours, platforms that I like to create, these are kind of the alternate media to be able to hear the voices that can actually give the mentorship.
Yeah, so much of it. I
I just
have
got the green light to swear. Yes,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm a rapper, damn it.
Yeah. I think it's unnatural to not swear. um,
Expression.
swearing is part of expression. It's part of being human. It's part of being alive. Better out than in. Better out than in. Yeah, I have
Love
been
it.
uninvited. Yeah. And this is funny because I have been uninvited for being a sexologist and talking about sex. Um, when um, when it's a parenting magazine. Like, what do I like? If we can't talk about sex and the process of sex because we're talking about having babies, then that is unnatural. So
Yes,
some of this
absolutely.
nonsense is there. Yeah. Anyway,
So like we can talk about storks delivering babies. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I'd love to ask you how you stay creative because you know it's difficult, I think, to be thinking of ideas and trying to put them into music. And how does one start to be creative or like learn from someone like you?
Mm. I think that I don't know. I see creativity as this well that can never go dry, unless your lifestyle and you as a person and a soul start hitting some walls, in terms of routines, unhappiness, this type of thing. But otherwise, I I really believe in maintaining the imagination of your 8-year-old self. Or whatever age it was where you could like run around and like, a rock isn't a rock. A rock is like a magical tool to if you throw it on the ground, it's going to burst open a portal. Like all of these possibilities that your mind could see as a kid, um, that you don't just like where at some point we're told to like grow up and no get with reality and bills to pay and all of these things. But if you're able to maintain that balance of that type of imagination, it gets you through all the more rigid stuff as well. So I see the opportunity of creativity in everything, even beyond the studio, beyond music. How will we, share a song called Vulva Vocabulary? Well, I saw that media was very apprehensive toward it, so we have to get creative. So I reached out to a younger generation that was talking about, menstrual discs, or they were talking about body positivity, and I was going through all the like newer influencers to say like, yeah, let's just set up an interview and let's talk about the things you're not afraid to talk about, and also teaching these bigger media platforms that hey, the world's moved forward and kids now aren't that scared about talking about these things, and it's absolutely necessary. Like I think it's crazy what you shared about a parenting magazine not wanting to talk about sex because and I understand it too because my auntie when released Vulva Vocabulary, she came to me very concerned and she's like, "Ah, yeah, Misha, this kind so shameful. Don't know where to hide your face. This must be very shameful." And I said, "Okay, why is it shameful?" She's like, "This kind of words shouldn't be used in a song. It shouldn't be talked about." I say, "Yeah, but like, if I was a kid and I grew up being told that I cannot even say the word vulva, then if something happens to me, then how will I be comfortable to go to my parent, in parenting magazines? Am I comfortable to go to my parent and say, hey, I was touched inappropriately, or I didn't feel comfortable, or I know my body and I didn't like this, or I'm not feeling well down there? Are we comfortable enough to just say these words and even be able to label them scientifically, like my vulva, this is my vulva, not vagina, this is my vulva, and these songs that you feel are so shameful, like can we then use them to actually help protect ourselves and also be educated ourselves? And auntie is very old school, so she was like, yeah, okay, like she was won over, but she didn't want to admit the point, so she kind of just like walked away. But little baby steps like that, you find ways to win people over. So I think approaching the business of marketing, promoting all of that stuff creatively, if you're not someone that wants to write a song or a haiku, just everything, approach everything with that level of creativity.
Yeah, I love haiku. Yeah, so it's overwhelming. Yeah, because to see how you are uh, up and about, you are all over the place, you're doing different things. So then it's like, whoa, I don't think I can do that. It's so easy to compare, right? But coming back to what you said about creativity is everywhere.
Yes, absolutely. And I dream of going back to like not being everywhere, not being on stages, just sitting down with a pen and paper and doodling. Like that's my joy. I love drawing. I love just sitting there. And also for people to learn not to judge themselves so much. I attend this like voguing class, new way class, and sometimes I catch myself in the mirror and then I doubt myself. And the teacher actually looks at me and says, "Stop judging yourself." I was like, "Oh, so accurate. I am." So, how many times in life do we, on the day to day, not at dance class, but on day to day, do we judge ourselves? Just stop judging, write that stupid poem you've always wanted to write, or draw the silliest picture you can draw. When I teach singing, I tell people to sing in the ugliest voice they can think of because everyone's always trying to sound like a choir person. No, when it gets ugly, that's where you find the roots of what makes your voice unique, what makes your voice beautiful, makes your voice sexy, all of these things. So yeah, stop
That's
judging.
beautiful. So encouraging. Now I feel I have permission to sing in my ugly voice. Yeah,
Yay!
I've been I've been told that I sing horribly. I should stop singing, and I shouldn't.
No, and in the shower, you singing at the top of your lungs, you're a star. It's all good.
So any last words for listeners out there? It's been so enjoyable, but we do have to wrap up.
Well, I think to bring it back to because this, I love that this show is about sexuality and spirituality. And so often we don't get to see that, whether because of religious or conservative, culturally conservative reasons, we don't get to see those things together. But they are very much a part of one another. For me, music is a very spiritual experience. You know, if you think back to that first song that you ever heard that like hit you and you're like, my life will never be the same. I've never heard music like this before. The lyrics, the singer was singing to me, or the way the music makes you feel. I mean, music is extremely spiritual. And so to bring in sexuality, which is the root of our being, how we procreate, how we find pleasure in life, how we get to know our own bodies, how we get to accept ourselves, and once accepting ourselves, help accepting others. To me, like this is the journey I'm on right now to exploring more and also to bring that spirituality of music together with a greater self-acceptance, I think is the goal. So
That's
thanks for
beautiful.
listening and check out Vulva Vocabulary. Not all that glitters. Thicky is coming up. There's NFTs that are sold with it to raise money for really great causes. And yeah, that's it.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on. And listeners out there, please check out Masia One's website. That's MASIA one.com. And you can find her on Facebook, YouTube, and SoundCloud. So this has been Eros Evolution. Thanks and bye.
Bye. Thank you.